On Friday, my beloved and I took a bike ride out to the Souk Potholes campground. We went to have a picnic. And we were meditating on some rocks for a while. And I decided that I wanted to get into the water, fully submerge myself, which is actually the reason why we rode our bikes to the campground, because the day use place has a more shallow river access. And there's places in the campground where you can plunge completely underwater and submerge yourself. And there's just something about the cold on my nervous system when I allow my body to relax into the cold water that helps me reset. And it reminds me that I can be uncomfortable and I can be safe. That those two things can coexist. And when I do that, it expands my comfort zone. Because now I've included discomfort in my comfort zone. It's now a part of the experience. And I'm breathing and I don't let myself get out until I've actually regulated my breath again. And in that way, I'm rewiring my brain so that when I find myself in a stressful situation or my body's creating some tension and it's unwanted and I'm resisting it, that I have some memory, some muscle memory to relax and to breathe and to regulate myself. But there's something else that happened when I was in the water. I swam across to the place where the river has molded the rocks, and it's created this just beautiful, windy path for the water to go. And as I explored over these rocks, what I found was a cove, a place where still water rested that would only get refilled when the river rushes again. And it was big enough for my entire body to float in. And no one could see me. So I got into this. It was a little bit hard because the rock surfaces are really slippery. So I'm kind of angling myself to get into this little cove. And then, I got to practice surrendering, to letting go, to allow my body to be fully held by this water and to rest there. And I realized that this was an access point to peace for me. And as I laid there in this stillness, breathing, relaxing, feeling the sun on my face, I realized that this is what I wanted more of. How can I cultivate more of this feeling? And the word grace just showed up, like in neon lights. It was like grace. And I thought, okay, well that's really interesting, because I have this relationship to the word grace that isn't current, but it's a definition that I've held about grace. And it's kept it separate from me. It's kept it unattainable as something that I could have or something that I could be, as if I need to strive for grace, as if grace just like already doesn't exist within me and each of you, because it does. But it felt like something that I had to strive for. And it was because I defined grace as elegance and poise and a way that someone might hold their body or have a certain way about them. They're so graceful. And I don't see myself that way. Sometimes I feel like, an elephant on stilts. Just like I can just feel that way in my spirit body. That I don't feel like I just have this way of, being. To me, that was grace. And so it was like out here. It was separate. And so as I was in the water and I thought about the gift of grace and how to cultivate more of it, if grace then became this doorway to peace, just like acceptance is, then I thought about how to have more of it and what's in the way of it. And when it came to grace, it was simply my definition. Like that became the thing that kept it separate from me. And so I made up an acronym. Because who doesn't love a good acronym? Right? But before I get to that acronym, I want to go back to the river and my quest for more peace when I was lying there in the still water. And this grace that exists, it started to show up as the unfurling, as the allowing, that is the essence of grace and how it can be. And I thought, well, okay then that is me in all the ways that I'm radically self-expressed. That is me as my trickster and my rebel. Like, grace isn't just this soft, compassionate, gentle, loving presence, although it is also that. That if grace is the way that I can have more ease and more peace in my life, then embracing grace is embracing kind of the awesome sauce of grace. And so here was me going into my head wondering, how can I create belonging for me with grace? And I came up with this acronym. So G is for guts, because it takes guts to show up in a world that is messy and vulnerable. And B, unapologetically alive. That takes some guts. And Revelry. I don't know what life would be without being able to celebrate the joy of being alive and to truly feel all the pleasures that brings. And the A, of course, stands for authenticity. Well, I say of course because if you really knew me, you would know that I've been practicing authentic relating as a modality for the past 7 years, and I'm a certified facilitator of some coursework and training with Art International. And the reason that that's so important to me is because I masked and pretended for so long in my marriage of 20 years without really understanding what it means to be true to myself and what it means to love what I find there. And I made a promise to myself that I would never betray who I am. I would never betray me again. And so I just live with authenticity as this rich anchor. And so there it is in the middle of grace. Permission to be myself. Hoorah. And creativity, of course. It's not that I've always seen myself as a creative person. I used to think creativity was painting a picture, making a sculpture, having a physical output of the thing that you did. You made this object and now it's for sale. And I was an art rep for 20 years before I opened a gallery. I've just been around artists and love the creative process, but never saw myself as that until I realized that I just am the living embodiment of creativity, that it is just who I am. And it's who each of you are too. And we all express it in different ways. And that when we lean into that amazing power of our own organic creativity, the way Denise is designing the garden out front, the way my friend Ange lives with the nature and gathers the herbs and essence of plant life to create her own aromatherapy smells. Like all of the creative ways, the way that Stephanie runs her family practice and counseling, and there's no end to the creativity that exists in that field. Oh, right? The grace of us and the ecstasy. Come on. I am a bit of a self-proclaimed hedonist. So if I'm redefining this word and bringing it into truth for me, then it's this freedom to let pleasure and peace coexist, that is actually an ingredient of my peace, is to also savor the pleasure and to notice it and name it. Sometimes I just love to shout out at no one in particular, but like the universe, and so my angels and spirit guides can hear me. I'm having such a good time. I just want to make sure they get it, right? Because if I'm having such a good time, then maybe I'll get more of these same experiences. But we gotta say it. Like right now, in this moment, I feel so alive. I mean, try it. Try shouting out.
I'm so grateful for this. This is amazing. Thank you. I'm having such a good time.
Oh, thanks for being with me in that. All right, I'm noticing the time and that I have to wrap up, but there's so much more I want to say about this. So let's see, in closing. That's my grace. Not the kind that makes me feel like I have to be delicate and perfect, but the kind that says, be bold, be free, be you. And the wild thing is, when I live this way, peace shows up anyway. Because peace doesn't come from getting it right, it comes from being fully alive. Thank you, and so it is.